She grew up knowing what hunger felt like and what silence sounded like after a long day of insults. The small house she lived in never felt like home. It was just a place where she slept, worked, and tried not to be noticed. The man who controlled her life was not kind. He reminded her every day that she owed him everything. Even though he had taken far more from her than he ever gave, from a young age, she learned to keep her head down. She woke up before sunrise, cleaned the house, cooked meals, and did small jobs in the neighborhood to earn a little money. Whatever she earned was taken from her. Still, she never complained out loud. Complaining only made things worse. People in the area knew her as a quiet, respectful girl. She smiled easily, even when she was tired. When someone needed help, she showed up. If an elderly neighbor needed water, she carried it. If a child was hungry, she shared her food. Kindness came naturally to her, even though life had never been kind to her. The man she lived with had a different nature. He was harsh, greedy, and always angry. He cared deeply about his image in front of others, but showed his true face behind closed doors. To outsiders, he appeared responsible and respectable. At home, his words were sharp and his actions were cruel. He controlled every part of her life, from where she went to how long she stayed outside. She had dreams once. Small dreams, simple ones. She wanted to study, to have a job where she could stand on her own feet. She wanted peace. But dreams slowly faded when survival became the only goal. Each day was about getting through the next hour without making a mistake. One evening, after finishing a long day of work, she was sent to the local market to buy groceries. The sun was setting and the road was quiet. She walked quickly, afraid of returning late and facing anger again. On her way back, she noticed a man lying near the roadside, badly injured and unconscious. She stopped. Fear rushed through her. Helping a stranger could bring trouble. If she got involved and something went wrong, she would be blamed. She stood there, unsure, looking around to see if anyone else was coming. The road was empty. The man was bleeding, breathing weakly. Her heart raced. She thought about walking away. No one would know. No one would blame her. But then she imagined herself in that position, alone and helpless. Without thinking further, she made a decision. She rushed to the nearest house and begged for help. Most people were afraid and refused to get involved. Finally, an old shopkeeper helped her call for medical assistance. She stayed by the injured man's side, holding a cloth against his wound, whispering words she wasn't sure he could hear. When help arrived, she stepped back quietly. She didn't give her name. She didn't wait for thanks. She simply walked away, late, tired, and nervous about what awaited her at home. When she returned, anger exploded. She was accused of wasting time, of making excuses. No one cared why she was late. She was punished with harsh words and locked into silence again. That night, she cried quietly, not because of the pain, but because she wondered why doing the right thing always seemed to bring her more suffering. Days passed, and life returned to its usual rhythm. She forgot about the injured man. She assumed he survived, or maybe he didn't. Either way, she believed it had nothing to do with her anymore. Life taught her not to expect miracles. The man she lived with, however, was hiding his own secrets. He was involved in illegal dealings and had debts that kept him awake at night. He saw her not as a human being, but as a shield he could use if things ever went wrong. He often watched her closely, calculating, thinking. She felt the change in his behavior, even though she didn't understand it. His words became colder. His temper grew shorter. Something dark was building beneath the surface. She continued working, helping neighbors, and staying invisible. She believed that if she caused no trouble, trouble would never come looking for her. But fate had already marked her path. One afternoon, officers arrived at the house. Their presence filled the air with fear. She stood frozen as accusations were thrown in her direction. She didn't understand what was happening. She kept saying she had done nothing wrong. The man who controlled her life stood there, calm and confident, telling lies without hesitation. He spoke with authority, with fake concern. His words painted her as guilty before anyone even listened to her. She felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Her voice shook as she tried to defend herself, but no one seemed interested in the truth. The neighbors watched in silence. Some believed the lies. Others were too afraid to speak. As she was taken away, she looked back at the house she once called home. It had never protected her, but leaving it like this still broke something inside her. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know how long this nightmare would last. All she knew was that her life had just changed forever, and the kindness she once showed to a stranger would soon return in a way she could never imagine. The first night in custody felt unreal to her. The room was cold, the walls were bare, and the noise never truly stopped. She sat on a hard bench, hugging her arms around herself, replaying everything that had happened. Only hours ago, she had been sweeping the floor at home. Now she was locked away, accused of things she didn't even fully understand. She kept thinking there must be some mistake. Surely someone would come and listen. Surely the truth would matter. She had lived her whole life honestly, never stealing, never hurting anyone. How could they believe she was capable of such a crime? When she was questioned, she spoke softly but clearly. She answered everything truthfully. She explained where she had been, what she had done, how she earned her money. But every answer seemed to fall into empty space. The officers were already convinced. The story told against her sounded stronger than her own weak voice. The man who controlled her life had prepared everything carefully. He had documents ready, false witnesses lined up, and a calm expression that made him look trustworthy. He spoke as if he were disappointed in her, not angry. That hurt more than his shouting ever did. His acting was perfect. She watched him from across the room, unable to believe how easily lies came out of his mouth. This was the same man who scolded her for the smallest mistake, who showed no mercy at home. Now he stood there as a victim, as someone betrayed. No one questioned him. Days passed slowly. She was moved to a larger holding area where other women were kept. Some looked angry, some broken, some completely empty inside. She felt out of place, like a child who had wandered into a world she did not belong in. At night, she barely slept. The sounds, the fear, the uncertainty pressed on her chest. She worried about her future. Would she ever be free again? Would anyone believe her? She had no money for a lawyer, no family to fight for her. During the hearing, everything happened very fast. Words she didn't understand were spoken. Papers were signed. Decisions were made. She tried to speak again, but her voice was drowned out by procedure and impatience. When the sentence was announced, she felt numb. Prison. Real prison. Her legs felt weak as she was taken away. She wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, that she was innocent, but no sound came out. Somewhere deep inside, hope cracked. The journey to prison felt endless. She stared out of the small window, watching the city fade into unfamiliar roads. Every mile felt like it was taking her farther from the person she used to be. Inside the prison, reality hit hard. The rules were strict. The routine was unforgiving. She was given plain clothes, a number, and a bed that didn't feel like a bed at all. Privacy disappeared instantly. The other inmates studied her carefully. Some were curious, some suspicious. She kept to herself, speaking only when spoken to. She didn't want trouble. Trouble had already ruined her life once. Work assignments were given quickly. Long hours, little rest. She followed instructions carefully, afraid of making even the smallest mistake. She learned that prison punished weakness and rewarded silence. Despite everything, she tried to remain kind. When someone struggled, she helped if she could. When someone cried at night, she listened. Kindness didn't cost her anything, and it reminded her she was still human. But kindness was not always welcomed. Some took advantage of it. Some mocked her softness. There were days she returned to her bed exhausted, wondering if being good had any value in a place like this. Outside the prison walls, life moved on. The man who sent her there slept peacefully. His debts were covered using the money she was accused of stealing. He told neighbors a sad story about how he had been betrayed by the one he trusted most. People believed him. She learned this slowly through rare conversations and whispers. Every new detail felt like a fresh wound. Not only had he taken her freedom, he had taken her reputation. Months, turned into a year. Her body adjusted, but her heart remained heavy. She marked time through routines and small changes. A new guard, a new cellmate. The passing of seasons she could only guess by the temperature. Sometimes, late at night, she thought about the injured man she once helped. She wondered if he survived. She wondered if he ever thought about the stranger who stopped for him when no one else did. Then she felt foolish for even thinking that such a memory could matter now. She learned to hide her pain. Crying openly only made things harder. She became quieter, stronger in a way she never wanted to be. Each day taught her endurance, not hope. One evening, a new inmate arrived. She was older and carried herself differently. There was a calm confidence about her. Over time, they spoke. She listened to her story and realized something important. Many people in prison were not monsters. Many were victims of lies just like her. This understanding changed her. She stopped blaming herself so much. She began to see that the world was not always fair, but that didn't mean she deserved what happened. Far away, in a hospital bed, the man she once saved had woken up months after the accident. His recovery was slow and painful. His life took a completely different turn. He remembered the face of the young woman who refused to leave him bleeding on the road as he rebuilt his life. That memory stayed with him. He searched for her, but found nothing. No name, no trace. Only questions. Back in prison, she stood in line one morning, unaware that the past she thought was gone forever was slowly making its way back toward her. Fate was moving quietly, preparing a return that would shake the lies built around her life. She didn't know it yet, but the kindness she believed had been wasted was about to become the reason she would survive the years ahead. Time passed slowly. Yet in a strange way, it also moved too fast. She had been in prison for over a year, and each day blurred into the next. Yet even in the monotony, small events began to change the rhythm of her life. She became familiar with the routines, knew when the guards would patrol, and learned to navigate the harsh social environment. Survival was no longer just about avoiding punishment. It was about understanding people and their hidden motives. Her interactions with other inmates continued to shape her. Some were bitter and hopeless. Some had accepted their fate entirely. She observed quietly, absorbing lessons about strength, resilience, and human nature. It was painful to see how easily life could break someone, and yet it was inspiring to witness those who refused to be broken. She discovered that even small acts of kindness, like sharing bread or lending a comforting word, could create ripples that mattered more than anyone realized. One afternoon, while performing her duties in the prison kitchen, she noticed an older woman struggling to carry a heavy basket of vegetables. Without thinking, she stepped forward and helped her. The woman looked at her with gratitude and said something that would stay with her. For a long time, your heart is not prison-bound. Don't ever let anyone take that from you. The words struck her deeply, reminding her of who she had been before the injustice and cruelty entered her life. Meanwhile, outside the prison walls, the man she had saved months before was slowly rebuilding his life. He had recovered physically, but the memory of the girl who had shown him compassion refused to leave him. He often thought about how different the world would have been if he had never met her. The thought of repaying her kindness grew into an obsession. He wanted to find her, to thank her, and perhaps, in some way, protect her from the cruelty she had suffered. Back in the prison, she noticed subtle changes in the environment. New guards came, old ones left, and sometimes the shifts of power among inmates altered the dynamic. She remained cautious, never letting herself become too trusting, but she noticed one inmate who seemed different. She was quiet, observant, and carried herself with a calm strength that reminded her of the woman she had helped in the kitchen. Over time, they exchanged small words, building a silent understanding of shared survival. Life in prison forced her to confront herself in ways she had never imagined. The silence of the night allowed memories to surface, the moments of joy she had experienced as a child, fleeting kindness of strangers, the warmth of a smile in a world that had been mostly cold. She realized that while prison had taken her freedom, it could not take her memories or her capacity to care. Those remained hers, untouched and private. One day she received a letter. It was rare for inmates to receive personal correspondence, and her heart raced as she opened it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, precise, and carried a sense of urgency. Inside was a simple note expressing gratitude for an act of kindness. She could barely remember the day she helped a stranger in the market. The writer spoke of how her actions had changed his life, and how he had been searching ever since to find her. The letter was unsigned, but something in the words resonated deep within her. She read the letter repeatedly, feeling a mix of hope and disbelief. Could it be real? Could someone she had helped remember her after all this time? The possibility seemed almost impossible, yet she felt a spark of something she had not felt in months. Hope. Her days took on a new rhythm. She continued with her responsibilities, but now, the thought of the person who remembered her kindness gave her a quiet strength. She walked a little taller, smiled a little more often, and even faced the harsh words of the guards with a steadier heart. The small flicker of hope reminded her that her actions had meaning beyond the walls that confined her. As the months passed, she continued to navigate the challenges of prison life. She learned to speak only when necessary, to choose her battles carefully, and to hold on to her dignity amidst the humiliation and unfair treatment. Her inner strength became her shield, her empathy became her sword, and her memories became her secret sanctuary. Outside, the billionaire who had been helped by her kindness finally traced the events back to her. Using every resource at his disposal, he began the search for the girl who had risked so much to help a stranger. He discovered the lies that had been told to ruin her life and learned about the prison sentence that had been falsely imposed. Anger and determination fueled his every move. He vowed that justice would be served, and that the girl who had saved him would be free and safe. Unaware of the approaching change, she continued to survive each day as best she could. Yet the universe had begun to tilt in her favor. The acts of cruelty that had kept her imprisoned were starting to unravel, and the kindness she had shown, simple and unremarkable at the time, was about to become the catalyst for her salvation. In the quiet moments, she allowed herself to dream again. She imagined freedom, safety, and a life where she could choose her own path. Though cautious and tempered by years of hardship, she dared to believe that her story was not yet over. Something was coming, something that would turn the tables and prove that even in the darkest moments, human kindness could leave an indelible mark on the world. Life inside the prison continued, but something had begun to change for her. There was a quiet strength in her now, a sense that she was no longer completely alone. Even in a place designed to crush hope, the human spirit found ways to survive. She had formed small bonds, earned a quiet respect from some of the inmates, and even the guards noticed that she carried herself differently. She did not ask for favors, did not seek attention, yet her presence was no longer invisible. The letter she had received months earlier stayed with her. The thought that someone out there remembered her, cared about her well-being, and might even seek justice gave her a quiet courage. She began paying attention to the small details of her surroundings in a way she hadn't before. Every interaction, every observation, every whispered conversation in the dining hall or the courtyard became part of a mental map she was quietly building. She noticed a few things about the guards that could be helpful. Patterns and shifts. Who was sympathetic? Who was harsh? She learned which inmates could be trusted and who was dangerous. Survival in prison was not just about avoiding trouble, it was about understanding people deeply. She became cautious but also wise, learning to read intentions where others saw only behavior. One morning, during her routine work in the laundry, a guard approached her quietly. Unlike the others, he spoke gently, with a softness that surprised her. He slid a small note across the counter with a warning. She read it with a racing heart. There were people plotting against her within the prison walls, seeking to make her life unbearable. The note also contained advice: remain quiet, follow the routine, protect her mind and heart. The knowledge of the threat made her tense, but it also strengthened her resolve. She began to pay closer attention to the subtle ways people moved, the half-smiles, the glances, the whispered words. Danger was there, lurking, but she would not be unprepared. Her mind sharpened, her instincts honed by years of unfair treatment and suffering. Meanwhile, the billionaire who had been saved by her kindness was tirelessly searching for her. Every lead, Every bit of information he could gather brought him closer to finding her. He discovered the lies that had been told to ruin her life, the corrupt man who had falsely accused her, and the prison where she was being held. The anger and frustration were tempered by admiration. The more he learned about her, the more he realized how extraordinary her character was. Even in the face of unimaginable hardship, inside the prison, life continued to be harsh. She was still subjected to the long hours, the strict rules, and the occasional cruelty of others. Yet she discovered ways to cope. She wrote letters to herself in her mind, imagining conversations with people she loved, remembering moments of genuine kindness she had experienced. These mental exercises kept her spirit alive, kept her heart from hardening completely. She clung to the belief that she could survive not just physically, but emotionally and morally. One evening, while sitting in the small courtyard, she noticed a figure outside the prison gates. At first, she thought she was imagining it, but there was something unmistakable in the way he moved, the way he scanned the grounds. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be him? Could it really be the person whose life she had once saved, coming now to repay her kindness? Her mind raced with questions and doubts. What if it was someone else? What if she was setting herself up for disappointment? And yet a quiet hope blossomed, fragile but persistent. She allowed herself to imagine the possibility that justice and freedom were not just distant dreams, but could be within reach. Days passed with subtle shifts in the prison. The threat mentioned in the note became clearer, but she handled it with patience and intelligence. She avoided confrontations, mediated minor conflicts, and quietly strengthened alliances with those who could help her navigate the dangerous environment. She was no longer just surviving. She was actively managing her situation, using her mind and her heart in equal measure. Outside, the billionaire made plans. He was preparing to confront the man who had falsely accused her, to expose the truth, and to ensure that she could leave the prison with dignity and safety. The effort required every resource he had: lawyers, investigators, and trusted friends who believed in his mission. But his determination was unwavering. He was not motivated solely by gratitude. He was driven by a deep sense of justice and a recognition of her extraordinary courage. Inside, she continued to face long hours of labor, harsh conditions, and occasional humiliation. Yet she held on to her inner world. She remembered the injured man she had helped, the words of the older woman in the kitchen, and her own belief in human goodness. These memories were shields against despair, reminders that her actions mattered, that she was still capable of making a difference, even in confinement. The day finally came when a group of officials arrived at the prison. Accompanied by the familiar figure she had been imagining for months, there was a sense of urgency in the air. She watched from a distance, unsure if her mind was playing tricks on her, till the guards approached and called her name. Her heart pounded as she was led through the corridors. The man she had saved stood waiting outside, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and determination. Words were exchanged, simple and understated, but powerful. He had found her, and he had come not just to thank her, but to set right the injustices that had bound her. Freedom was a strange sensation. The walls that had confined her for so long now seemed almost unreal. The sun felt warmer, the air fresher, and every sound sharper and more vivid. She had survived not just through endurance, but through the quiet strength of her character, her empathy, and her unwavering sense of what was right. The man who had falsely accused her was brought to face the consequences of his lies. His confidence crumbled as evidence and truth were presented. The web of deceit he had built could not withstand the determination of someone who had been saved in the unwavering pursuit of justice. As she walked away from the prison, side by side with the man whose life she had once saved, she allowed herself to believe in possibilities she had long thought impossible. There would be challenges ahead, of course, but for the first time in years, she felt in control of her destiny. She had survived cruelty, injustice, and fear, and now she had the chance to embrace a life defined not by the lies of others, but by her own choices and the kindness she had shown the world. The morning she was released, the world felt both familiar and strange. The air smelled differently, brighter and cleaner than she remembered. The sunlight warmed her skin in a way that made her eyes sting with tears she could barely hold back. For years she had longed for this moment, and yet, standing outside the prison walls, she realized that freedom came with uncertainty as well as relief. The man whose life she had once saved waited, patiently beside a sleek car. His expression was calm but intense, filled with gratitude, determination, and respect. He handed her a small bag with essentials, not extravagant gifts, but practical things she would need after years of confinement. She accepted it silently, overwhelmed by a mixture of emotions, gratitude, disbelief, fear, and hope. The drive from the prison to a safe location was quiet. She stared out the window, taking in the world she had been absent from for so long. Buildings seemed taller, cars moved faster, and people walked with purpose. She realized how much she had missed, not just physically, but emotionally. The small interactions, the freedom to make choices, the ability to breathe without fear. Once at the safe house, she was given time to rest. She unpacked her bag slowly, arranging her few possessions with care. Every item reminded her of a life she had been forced to pause. She sat by the window, watching the world outside, feeling the pulse of life again. It was both comforting and intimidating to be back in a space where she could finally decide her own actions. Over the next few days, she met with legal experts and advisors who began the process of clearing her name completely. The man who had helped her ensured that every lie told against her was exposed. Evidence was gathered, witnesses were questioned, and a full investigation began. The truth slowly emerged, showing how deceit and manipulation had trapped her for so long. Despite the relief, there were moments of deep sadness. She thought about the years lost, the harsh nights, the loneliness, and the unfair treatment. Her mind occasionally wandered back to prison, to the inmates she had left behind, to the injustice that had defined much of her life. Tears came unbidden, and she allowed herself to cry. Freedom did not erase the past. It only allowed her to face it with a new strength. Meanwhile, the man who had been saved by her kindness became a constant presence. He did not overstep, did not demand gratitude or repayment. He simply supported her, respecting her space and her choices. Over time, a bond grew between them, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. He admired her resilience, her capacity for kindness, and her unwavering moral compass. She began to plan for the future cautiously. Simple goals came first: finding a safe place to live, earning an honest income, reconnecting with the outside world. Each step was deliberate, a careful rebuilding of a life that had been disrupted. She attended classes to improve her skills, explored job opportunities, and began forming new, healthy relationships. Every small success was a victory, a confirmation that she could reclaim her life. The legal battle against her, the man who had falsely accused her, progressed steadily. Evidence of his lies, manipulation, and corruption came to light, and the authorities could no longer ignore it. He faced consequences, not only legal but social, as the truth spread through the circles that had once believed him. The satisfaction of seeing justice done brought her a quiet peace, a reassurance that truth could prevail even against overwhelming odds. As weeks turned into months, she began to experience life in ways she had long forgotten. She walked through parks, watched sunsets without fear, laughed at small jokes, and experienced friendships untainted by manipulation or control. The world felt alive and vibrant, and she slowly allowed herself to participate fully in it. Her spirit, once dimmed by years of oppression, started to shine again. The bond with the man who had sought to help her evolved naturally. They shared conversations about life, hopes, fears, and experiences. She discovered that he had faced challenges of his own, that his gratitude was genuine, and that he admired not only her courage, but also her humanity. Trust developed slowly, carefully. She navigated relationships with the understanding that her heart deserved. Protection after so much betrayal. One afternoon, while walking through a quiet neighborhood, she met an older woman who reminded her of the woman in prison who had once told her, Your heart is not prison-bound." The encounter was brief, but the words lingered. She realized that the kindness she had shown, even when unappreciated or unnoticed, had a ripple effect. Small acts of humanity mattered, and the world had a way of bringing them back to the giver in unexpected ways. She began to help others in small ways. Carefully and intentionally, she donated time, shared knowledge, and offered guidance to those struggling. Her experiences had taught her empathy on a profound level, and she used her voice to advocate for those without one. The sense of purpose gave her strength, and the realization that she could make a positive impact in the world reinforced her self-worth. Her life gradually became a balance between healing and action. She attended therapy to process the trauma she had endured, worked diligently to rebuild her independence, and formed meaningful connections with people who respected her boundaries. The past remained a part of her, but it no longer controlled her. She learned to integrate her experiences into her identity, using them as a source of strength rather than a mark of shame. Months later, the world began to recognize her story. The injustices she had faced, the courage she had shown, and the kindness she had extended despite everything resonated with many. People were inspired by her resilience and moral integrity. She spoke cautiously, aware of the power of her story yet determined to use it for good. The man who had once been saved by her continued to support her, not as a savior, but as a companion and ally. Together they worked to ensure that others who had suffered injustice could find support and hope. Their partnership, rooted in mutual respect and shared experiences, became a source of stability and inspiration for both of them. Looking back, she realized that her life had been a series of challenges that tested her in every imaginable way. Yet through kindness, resilience, and determination, she had emerged stronger. The years of suffering had not destroyed her. They had shaped her into someone capable of great empathy, wisdom, and courage. In the end, freedom was not just the absence of walls. It was the reclamation of self, the ability to choose, to act, and to love without fear. She had been given a second chance, not as a gift to be taken lightly, but as an opportunity to live fully, honor the truth, and continue spreading the kindness that had defined her even in the darkest moments. Her journey was far from over. But for the first time, she faced it with clarity, strength, and hope. The trials of the past had forged a resilience that no one could take away. She understood that life would have challenges ahead, but she was ready to meet them with the courage that had carried her through every unjust day, every long night, and every moment of uncertainty. Her story had become one of survival, justice, and ultimately, triumph. After months of rebuilding her life, she began to experience a sense of peace that she had never thought possible. The initial relief of being free had evolved into a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her. Every day she awoke, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had survived extreme injustice and cruelty, and now she was determined to live a life filled with meaning, compassion, and integrity. She spent her mornings learning new skills, attending workshops, and exploring career opportunities that aligned with her interests. For years, she had been denied the chance to pursue education or personal growth. But now, every lesson was a step toward reclaiming her identity. She discovered talents she had never explored. From writing to managing small projects, and each success, however minor, fueled her confidence. The man who had saved her continued to be a steadfast presence in her life. He did not overwhelm her with attention or gifts. Instead, he provided steady support and encouragement. Together, they discussed plans for the future, from career choices to philanthropic efforts. His admiration for her resilience and character never wavered, but he also respected her independence. Allowing her to make decisions and move at her own pace, she also became increasingly involved in helping others who had experienced injustice. Her experiences gave her a unique perspective, and she felt a responsibility to guide and mentor those who were struggling. She volunteered at organizations that supported wrongly accused individuals and survivors of abuse. Using her story as a source of hope and inspiration, People were drawn to her authenticity and empathy. She built connections that were both meaningful and empowering. Despite the progress she had made, she occasionally faced moments of doubt and fear. Memories of prison and the betrayal she had endured sometimes resurfaced, bringing waves of anxiety and sadness. But she had learned techniques to manage these emotions, whether through mindfulness, writing, or simply speaking openly with trusted friends. Each time she confronted these feelings, she grew stronger and more self-aware. Her relationship with the man who had once been saved by her kindness evolved naturally over time. They spent long hours discussing values, goals, and dreams, and slowly a deep emotional connection formed. It was not rushed or forced. Instead, it developed from mutual respect, shared experiences, and genuine admiration. She had learned to trust again, to allow someone into her life without fear of manipulation or deceit. The legal proceedings against the man who had falsely accused her had concluded, and justice was served. He faced consequences for his lies and corruption, and the public recognition of her innocence brought a sense of closure. While the experience had left scars, it also provided her with a newfound belief in the power of truth and integrity. She realized that, despite the hardships, standing firm in her values had ultimately led to vindication. With her freedom fully restored, she began to explore the world in ways she had never imagined. She traveled to new places, met people from diverse backgrounds, and experienced the beauty of life outside the confines of fear and oppression. Each new experience was a reminder of her resilience and the vast possibilities that life still held for her. She also continued to nurture her sense of community. She organized programs for young women who had faced adversity, teaching them practical skills and helping them develop confidence. Her story became a source of hope, showing that it was possible to overcome injustice and build a meaningful life. The gratitude and inspiration she received from others reinforced her sense of purpose and strengthened her resolve to make a positive impact in her personal life. She allowed herself to experience joy and love in ways she had previously thought impossible. She built relationships based on honesty, respect, and shared values. She learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a bridge to deeper connection. The man who had once been saved by her kindness became a trusted companion, someone who shared her vision for a life rooted in compassion and integrity. She also focused on self-care, understanding that true strength came not only from endurance but from nurturing the mind, body, and spirit. She engaged in activities that brought her peace, whether it was reading, walking in nature, or practicing creative expression. These moments of reflection helped her maintain balance and clarity, allowing her to approach life with both courage and serenity. As the years passed, she became a symbol of resilience and moral courage. Her story was shared widely, inspiring countless individuals to act with kindness and stand firm in the face of injustice. She realized that her suffering had not been in vain. It had shaped her into someone capable of making a profound difference in the lives of others. Ultimately, she understood that life was not about avoiding hardship, but about how one responded to it. She had faced betrayal, cruelty, and imprisonment, yet she emerged not only unbroken, but strengthened by the experiences. Her journey was a testament to the power of empathy, perseverance, integrity. She looked forward to the future with hope and determination. There would undoubtedly be challenges, but she was equipped to meet them with wisdom and courage. She had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her freedom, and she was committed to living in a way that honored the lessons she had learned. The kindness she had once shown to a stranger had come full circle, shaping her destiny and reaffirming the enduring power of compassion as she settled further into her new life. She began to recognize how much she had changed over the years. The girl who had once walked carefully through the streets, afraid of making any mistake, was now a woman with purpose and clarity. Every challenge she had faced had taught her lessons in strength, resilience, and compassion. She had learned that life would not always be fair, but that it was possible to respond with integrity, courage, and empathy. Her days were filled with meaningful activity. She continued volunteering, mentoring young women who had faced adversity, and sharing her story as a source of inspiration. People listened intently to her experiences, not just for the drama, but for the lessons embedded in every hardship she had endured. She emphasized that it was not the cruelty or injustice that defined a person, but how they responded to it. Her message was clear: kindness and strength could coexist. Even in the darkest moments, while her public work was important, she also focused on personal growth. She dedicated time to education, learning new skills, and exploring creative outlets that brought her joy. Painting, writing, and music became part of her daily routine, allowing her to express emotions she had suppressed for years. These activities were more than hobbies. They were forms of therapy that allowed her to process her past and shape her future. Her bond with the man she had once saved deepened over time. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, trust, and shared experiences rather than superficial attraction. They had faced challenges that most people could never imagine, and these trials had created a foundation of understanding and loyalty. Together, they discussed future projects, charitable initiatives, and ways to support others who had experienced injustice. They became partners in action and in life, each drawing strength from the other. Despite her progress, there were moments when memories of her past returned unbidden. Certain sounds, smells, or situations could trigger flashes of the fear, loneliness, and pain she had endured. Yet she faced these memories with courage, understanding that acknowledging them was part of healing. She learned to transform these reminders of suffering into lessons of resilience, using her experiences to guide and support others. The legal aftermath of her case continued to unfold. While the man who had falsely accused her had been held accountable, there were lingering issues that needed attention. She worked closely with legal experts to ensure that no loose ends remained, taking an active role in protecting her reputation in future. The process was exhausting at times, but she approached it with determination. Knowing that closure was essential for true freedom, her work with young women became increasingly impactful. She designed programs that not only taught practical skills, but also emphasized emotional intelligence, self-respect, and resilience. She shared strategies for navigating difficult situations, building self-confidence, and cultivating a support network. Each success story she witnessed reinforced her belief in the transformative power of guidance and mentorship in her personal life. She began forming deeper friendships and connections. These relationships were characterized by honesty, mutual respect, and shared values. She learned to recognize the difference between those who truly cared for her and those who sought to exploit her vulnerability. Her discernment grew sharper, allowing her to maintain boundaries and protect her emotional well-being. She also became involved in broader social initiatives, advocating for reforms that could prevent others from experiencing injustices similar to hers. She spoke at events, participated in panel discussions, and contributed to policy recommendations. Her insights, drawn from lived experience, added a human dimension to abstract discussions of law and justice. She found fulfillment in knowing that her suffering had a purpose beyond her. Personal recovery. As the months turned into years, she continued to evolve. Her resilience was no longer just about surviving. It was about thriving. She celebrated small victories daily, completing a project, helping someone in need, or simply enjoying a quiet moment of peace. Each day was a reminder that she had reclaimed control over her life and that the future was hers to shape. The relationship with the man who had saved her became a source of inspiration for both of them. Together, they envisioned a life dedicated to helping others, creating opportunities, and spreading kindness. Their partnership was a testament to the power of gratitude, trust, and shared values. She learned that love and partnership could be rooted in respect and understanding, rather than dependency or fear. She also took time to reflect on the lessons she had learned. The years of hardship had taught her empathy, patience, and the importance of moral courage. She realized that every act of kindness, no matter how small, could have far-reaching consequences. The simple decision to help someone in need had altered the course of her life in unimaginable ways. As she looked toward the future, she felt a sense of clarity and purpose she had never experienced before. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she was equipped to face them with wisdom, strength, and compassion. She had learned that true freedom was not merely the absence of physical confinement, but the ability to live authentically, make choices with confidence, and influence the world positively. Her journey had transformed her from a girl trapped in fear, injustice, into a woman empowered by experience, guided by kindness, and committed to making a difference. The trials she had endured had not broken her. They had forged a character capable of inspiring others, shaping change and embracing life fully. Ultimately, she understood that the legacy of her experiences lay not in the pain she had suffered, but in the lives she touched, the lessons she shared, and the resilience she demonstrated. Every step she took forward was a declaration of hope, a celebration of survival, and a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Her story continued, not as a tale of victimhood, but as an ongoing journey of empowerment, justice, and unwavering compassion.